Yeah, so thanks for having me. So the first 15 minutes is going to be product demo, kind of talking about how I developed the product, kind of the story. And then the second section is going to be about crowdfunding. So we did 2 Kickstarters. One of them was unsuccessful, the second one was successful, and kind of talk about Kickstarter as a microcosm of your business, a little piece of what you're going to do as you're developing a business. And as Mark mentioned, talk about how God kind of gave me a vision about how to disseminate the message of my business, my crowdfunding, using principles through the scriptures. It was a lot of fun. So this is Hansnap. This is my product here. I designed it when I was crowd surfing. I was at a concert with my wife. Heavy metal concert. It was Valentine's Day. I probably have one of the very few wives that would go with me to a death metal show. And I wanted to film myself. I didn't want her filming me. I didn't want her in the mosh pit. I wanted to film myself. I had a perfectly good camera in my pocket, but no way to safely use it. I'm in my 30s now. I might not be crowd surfing forever. I wanted to catch this moment of impermanence forever. Little did I realize that I will be crowd surfing forever, so that's not an issue anymore. But I didn't have any way to safely use my camera, so my wife and I went back and started to the hotel and started designing what this product would look like. And I went home the next day and started building it, literally sewing. And that's, as I talk about where I've been in technology and software and all this complicated stuff, the heart pumps that Jason's working on, all that stuff. That's why I'm very much drawn to this product, because it's very simple. There's very few things that can go wrong. So literally, like I said, I went home and started sewing the first prototype. Just bought a bunch of off-the-shelf junk and started cutting, sewing, gluing, drilling, all things that I could physically make. I grabbed a friend of mine who, I don't have the CAD drawing skills. I grabbed a friend of mine who was electrical engineer. He's like, I'm not a mechanical engineer. I'm like, yeah, but CAD, so just draw something up for me. And I drew up this mechanism and had him do it, and then printed it out. I made my first working prototype. I was super excited. We used this a ton. And then I found another designer who was actually an industrial designer. And the other thing too, this doesn't look that technical, compared to so many things out there, but this is soft goods and this is hard goods. They're 2 different worlds, right? Soft goods, your clothing, your gloves, all the things that your textiles, and then your hard goods, your injection molded stuff. Those are 2 different worlds I came to find out, and they don't always interplay, and I'm trying to make a product that has both, and people are like, well, I do one half, I don't do the other. So I had to source a handful of people that could do everything. So I was fortunate to find another dude. And the other thing too, I built between web development and product development and even my investors and pretty much everybody that's been involved in this thing from beginning to end has all been believers. So it's been a rad thing to have that in common and just have this working base of fellowship to go off of. So I found an industrial designer, and we went through literally, this is my second one. The first one was with a belt, those belts that are reversible, like white on one side if you want to party, and then black on the other side if you want to go to work. So the reversible belt tube. So that was the first model I made, and then we made this one. And then after that, it was 15 iterations until I got one that I wanted to take to actual injection molding and to go into manufacturing. So that took a while. And then we did a Kickstarter. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And as we're talking about, as I'm talking to investors kind of after I've developed the product, done some marketing, got some traction, and now we're talking to investors and we're talking to box stores, we're hearing a similar story, and that's one of those things, everybody you talk to, they want they want something else, right? They want something different. Oh, well, we've done all this cool stuff. They're like, yeah, but you didn't do this one cool thing. So then you do that and you like go pitch it to somebody else. They're like, yeah, but we want this, right? There's always something. So the one thing that the investors and the box stores alike are saying is, we want more SKUs, right? Your product's cool, there's nothing else like it, you know, we dig it, but in order to start like a business, a company, we need more SKUs. I'm like, fine, we're gonna make more SKUs. So this is part of the product demo. We came up with a handful more SKUs to develop more, you know, so that we can raise cash, launch a business, and you know, eventually go into big box stores. So this is the universal one. It works with any phone, any case. That's the one on this model here. Then we got some cool lifestyle shots. This is my sister. This is like the super low budget model that's just adhesive. It's got no cool robotic arm on it. It's just you slap it on the back of your phone, you know, for joggers or stuff like that. This is the case integrated model. So initially we didn't want to get into the case space because there's a million cases out there, right? And then every time a new phone comes out, you have to build a new product, new tooling, all this headache. We just want to build gadgets. But we found, you know, looking for case partnerships, it can be tricky, so we just made our own case. So that's the case integrated model, it's just turnkey, you know, you don't got to stick anything on your phone. This is the 6 Plus model. This is me. So this is something that I actually built a prototype for with headphones. Everybody knows that when you're using your headphones, you can use the volume knob to take pictures with. So I built a model that was, I call it the finger trigger, where, you know, when you're wearing Hansnap, you wear it on your finger and you press a button so you can do one-handed photography. You know, I'm riding a bike and I'm taking pictures or whatever. So this is our Bluetooth model of that. You know, so Bluetooth shutter control, a wearable shutter control. So obviously it's, you know, for Hansnap when you're using Hansnap, but you know, you can put Hansnap on a pole and now you can, you get the idea. So this is the analog version, if you will. You know, you can't use it with iPhone 7 because there's no jack, but for every other sensible phone, you can plug it in.
So you SKU.
Exactly. Well, exactly. That's what it is. We got the Bluetooth version and the other one. So our biggest, we haven't announced this yet because technically we can't. So this isn't an announcement. We're all friends here. But we landed a partnership with OtterBox, which is the biggest case manufacturer in the world. And for a giant company, they're actually super friendly and like cool people. They're out in Colorado. So they launched, this was my vision 2 years ago when I started on this project. I'm like, somebody's going to come up with a case system that clips into all kinds of other stuff. You know, you've got all these products out there that are just kind of like, you know, goofy and whatever. There's no universal system. So OtterBox came up with the OtterBox Universe, their Universe case system. So it's got this rail mechanism on the back where other gadgets clip into it. So I got the wallet here, it's just a super slim wallet, it goes on the back of the phone, you know, like so. So we, being a tiny company with, you know, very little traction, made a prototype super fast, printed it out, and made a pitch video, a 15-second pitch video, and pitched it to them. And they're like, whoa, this is the fastest we were literally got it out of boxes before it hit the shelf at Best Buy. And we're like, we want, you know, we're gonna buy those. My engineer reverse designed it, you know, and we put it all together and pitched these guys. They're like, that was the fastest anybody's ever made us a product. And that was the coolest video that anybody's made, you know. And so they're like, right off the bat, they're like, we wanna do business with you guys. And we're like, oh, crazy. So this is the model that we're, you know, building with them. So that's super exciting because they're a gigantic company and we're not. So we're gonna go for it and see what happens. So yeah, they've got all these different gadgets. They've got SanDisk is doing a storage thing with them. So you just clip the storage into the back of the phone. Clip is doing a lens thing. The Square is doing a card reader, and then there's other battery like competing with Mophie. So all like legitimate companies and like legitimate products. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, and then so this is the press that we generated on our Kickstarter. So yeah, let me jump into the second half of this. So now you're now that you know what the product is, we're gonna jump into the second section. So we'll turn around and hi, welcome to the talk. This is crowdfunding as a microcosm of business. So if you look at crowdfunding, right? Who's familiar with crowdfunding? Probably everybody. Has anybody done crowdfunding here?
It's participating,
right.
not
It's somewhat painful. So it's kind of a newish phenomena. It's younger than 10 years old, but there's a lot of different things coming out of crowdfunding, and it's very interesting. I've done 2 campaigns. One of them failed. One of them was successful, and I've counseled a couple and worked on a couple. But it's interesting to see what it's doing culturally and what it can do for business. And so my thesis at this point is why I believe that crowdfunding is better for marketing than it is for making money in most cases, not always. And additionally, like I said, the overall principle of crowdfunding, like how does it work? Not the nuts and bolts, but the big picture. How does crowdfunding work? And this revelation that I believe that God showed me as I was preparing for mine. So I'll just give you a little bit of background on me. What is crowdfunding? Why do you care? Failing your way to success, right? That's a big mantra in the Bay Area. Everybody's talking about failing, and you're like, I would rather win. So thank you very much. And then despite technology, nobody beats Jesus. So we're going to talk about, kind of that contrast. And then we'll have some time for questions at the end. So I work for a company called Tygo Energy. We do optimization and data analysis in the solar. So these are solar panels that are giving you real-time data. And we're one of the very first companies to bring the Internet of Things to the solar industries. There's a lot of industries out there that are outdated right now, and all this new technology hasn't yet been applied to it. So when I started with them 7 years ago, there's nobody doing this. There was a couple other very small companies that were all like, at war with each other, and we're one of the first companies to do it. So I've had a lot of rad opportunities. I got to work in 7 different countries, and I got to be the project manager for the CTO for these large company product rollouts. So I got to learn about product development, customers, rolling products out, so on and so forth. So I am in a band. Has anybody ever heard of a guy named Tim Draper? Tim Draper is like a legendary VC in the Valley. I met his son, Adam Draper, at this high school thing for entrepreneurial youth. And his son, Adam Draper's son, is also a VC. They're 4th generation VC. So that was pretty cool to meet. And he's like, you know what? I think band members make great entrepreneurs because it's like a business. There's all these things happening and you have to run a business. So I've been learning how to run a business that loses money consistently for a long time now. But also interestingly, at the same time, he's no longer with us. We got a new drummer.
Poor drummer.
But drummer, we've had like 20 drummers.
Yeah. That's why I said poor drummer.
It's like Spinal Tap.
Yeah.
He left. So at the same time that we were vetting a new drummer, we were vetting a potential partner coming on. And after Adam said that, I'm like, that's awesome. So I treated the partner coming on with the business the same way I treated the drummer coming on with the band. And almost at the same exact time they came into my life, the same exact time that I admitted the drummer and told the other guy it's not gonna work. And it was the same process. So I thought that was fascinating and very helpful. It's my faith-based death metal band. It's a lot of fun. It's my cute wife, and we're at a demo in Santa Cruz doing hand-snappy stuff. This is my product. So I have the packaging right here. You guys can come up and take a look at it. It's not balanced very well. So yeah, we got some cool press coverage. And again, why I think that crowdfunding is better for marketing often than it is for making money is people are looking to cover interesting, cool stories, and you can get free press coverage because you have the story, right? Crowdfunding gives you a story. I've got a deadline, I've got this thing I'm trying to achieve, I've got a new product, right? You're not just some guy that's like, hey, I got this cool thing, write about me. They're like, you know, we don't care. So you get free press coverage with crowdfunding if you do it right. So what is crowdfunding? One of the big trends that we're seeing right now is that crowdfunding is going to surpass traditional VC funding as of this year. So you've got all these different models of crowdfunding. So you've got donation, reward, lending, equity. Donation is just like the GoFundMes. You know, I've got this thing, give me money, and I'm going to give you like warm feelings. Reward is like what I did. So you support my campaign, I'll send you a Hansnap. Lending is just like it sounds. It's, you know, hey, I've got this project, loan me your money. Obviously you see, you know, this one is much more of a lucrative venture, and that's why it's overcoming, because you can access a large crowd, get money back, so on and so forth. So there's 22, according to Inc., there's 22 main crowdfunding sites, right? There's a lot of stuff. And I can send these links out, but you basically can go through this rubric here and be like, oh, I go to this one because I'm doing this type of thing that you're doing. But for our purposes tonight, we're going to talk about Kickstarter mainly. These are the two big players, right? So you got Kickstarter in Brooklyn. We went to Kickstarter a couple times for a different project we were working on. And it's super cool, but it's like a monastery. It's like you can hear a pin drop there. Everybody's like super quiet. They got like a rooftop garden. It's really nice. Little stuffy for my taste, but really nice. And then Indiegogo, which ironically I haven't been there, and I found out that it was in the Bay Area because I was putting the slide together. So the main three differences between these two is you see the countries here. Kickstarter's got like 17 countries represented. Indiegogo's got 224 countries that it's in. To me, that's amazing. But Kickstarter has 3 times the eyeballs that Indiegogo. They have 27 million unique visitors. So, you know, Kickstarter's kind of got the brand. When people talk about crowdfunding, they think about Kickstarter. And then the other main difference between these two is that Kickstarter's all or nothing, which personally I think that adds to the drama, and that adds to you know, the urgency when you're trying to get people to support your product. Because if you don't make your goal, you don't get any money. Whereas Indiegogo's got a couple different platforms. They've got one like that, all or nothing, but most people, if they're going on Indiegogo, they opt for the I'll collect the cash that I raise, which is also sketchy because you're going for a goal, and if you don't make that goal, then you're probably not going to get a product. So, you know, that's probably why Kickstarter's winning. So who is crowdfunding good for? You know, at first people were like, when it first came out, they're like, you know, only entrepreneurs, or only, you know, small guys or whatever. But we're seeing that existing businesses are using crowdfunding to vet their products as well. You know, because it's free. Anybody can do it. And the main reasons I think to do a crowdfunding is to be first to market, to get free press coverage, to market test your products before taking on capital, and then lastly, funding. Like, it's not necessarily a great vehicle for making money. Some of these other things that you get as a benefit are kind of outweigh that. And then what I kind of realized, you know, my wife wasn't super excited about doing crowdfunding for various reasons. It's a lot of work, but I'm like, look, babe, we can do crowdfunding, and it might work, it might not, but we kind of have to do all of these things if we're going to start a business anyway. You know, you need a development team. You need to understand your money transactions. You need production. You need video. You need all these things for a business. the same that you need for a crowdfunding campaign, right? So it's kind of a microcosm of a business. You know, you're like, do I want to start a business? Do I want to start a company? Well, maybe you should do crowdfunding to find out if you want the heartache and the headache of doing all those things, because you have to do those things. But with a campaign, it can be over at the end of the campaign and you move on with the rest of your life. So these are the categories that are like the top categories to the bottom categories of people that do campaigns. So interestingly, film and video is the #1 category that people go to crowdfunding for. And then technology is down here at the bottom, you know, and then you've got games and design kind of in here in the middle. So the majority of campaigns actually fail. You've got 60% here that never see the light of day. They don't make their goals. So I'm sure we've all seen campaigns. We've all seen the coolest cooler, $13 million, cooler for the beach or whatever, and Pebble smartwatch that did $20 million. So I had this concept of like, dude, you get a good idea, you put it online, and then it blows up, and everybody's happy, right? Well, mine did. It blew up in the other direction, and apparently 60% of people's do. So it turns out that your average raise on crowdfunding is about $7,500. And you have here in the 0.5% that's more than $1 million, and here at 1% that's between 100K and $1 million. So it's very small amount of people who figure out how to make crowdfunding work, and honestly, it's an investment. They put the money into crowdfunding to get the money out. It's not as organic as they want you to believe sometimes. So this is my first campaign, and I learned a couple key metrics. One was the product wasn't far enough along. If somebody's gonna give you money, they generally want something in return, right? So if you see this drawing, which I thought was really cool, but that doesn't inspire a lot of confidence that you're actually gonna get a product. You know, that's like the Calvin and Hobbes version of, what we ended up actually making. So people didn't trust that we were gonna give them a product. It was the wrong time of year. We launched it on Black Friday. We tried to launch it, we launched it on Black Friday, we're gonna run it through Christmas and end at CES. Well, we ended up going to CES, but our campaign was long terrible by then. And then we were asking for too much money, creating a psychological barrier. I had this one crowdfunding guru, the first week into the campaign, I knew something was wrong, but I was still like trying to be hopeful. And he's like, he didn't even like talk to me. He was just all, what are your numbers? How much you trying to sell? Blah, blah, blah. He's like, your campaign's tanked already. I'm all, what? He's like, yeah, it's done, dead, over. I'm like, yeah, I get it, all right, fine, I get it. But it was kind of rude, but also like, all right, I kind of knew that already, but he told me the truth here. But $90,000 for this was a psychological barrier. People didn't believe that we could raise that money. So they're like, well, why would I bother putting money in if it's not even gonna be successful? So ironically, after this failed, we went and raised private equity, and it took about $90,000 to get to this point. But my second Kickstarter was only $10,000. And so that's something that you learn is you ask for the bare bottom amount that you need realistically, because if it's gonna hit 10,000, and you do the right things, it can also hit 90. But if you do 90, you might not even do anything. So coolest cooler, and this is, by the way, this is the fail to success section. I failed myself and learned a lot through that. We adjusted and came back and was successful. And this is one of the most spectacular failures out there. So they went and they did a campaign in the dead of winter for a summer cooler, and that didn't work. They fixed themselves, they went back to the market. Is everybody here pretty much familiar with coolest cooler? It's a cool cooler, right? It's got big wheels on it. You open up the top and there's plates in there. It's got a Bluetooth speaker. It's got a margarita blender on top. So it's got all these gadgets, and everybody loved it. And it did $13 million, right? And at the time, it was one of the biggest crowdfunding successes. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, and all this stuff. But as time goes on, they couldn't deliver on their product. They had manufacturing problems, and they were overwhelmed with the demand, and they couldn't deliver. Turns out they were selling their product on Amazon to people before they gave their Kickstarter product to people, and so their Kickstarter people were really mad. And their justification was like, well, we're short on cash and we need more money to fulfill your order. So it's like, it's all cool, right? And they're like, no. And then they went back to the same Kickstarter and asked all of their people who'd already supported them for like $94 more to deliver the product that they already promised that they already bought. So I learned a term through this process. It's called doxing. Have you guys heard that term, doxing? Yeah, to look it up. It's basically where people online put your personal information out for everyone to call you, heckle you, go to your house and threaten you. And that's basically what's been happening to these guys since, is they've just been, and the founder is like, look, I'm trying to do the best I can. I'm working 18-hour days, but at the end of the day, this is a $300 cooler. So I think people threatening my life and coming to my work and banging on doors is a little bit ridiculous, which I completely agree with them. But the moral of the story is know how you're going to get the product into people's hands, and make that happen so that doesn't happen to you. This is a great design of somebody. So my slide here, it says in general, but not in general, companies don't use Kickstarter as a repeat business. They don't use Kickstarter to build a business. It's more to build a concept, and then they go and then build a business from there. However, there's a handful that have done very well. They've cracked the code of Kickstarting, and Peak Design is one of them. They make really cool messenger bags, backpacks, stuff for cameras. They're in the city. So right before my campaign was failing, I went and tracked them down, banged on their door. I could hear dubstep and ping pong in the background, so I knew I was in the right place. And they swing open the door, and I'm by myself. It was like in San Francisco in like an industrial, and I'm banging on this door. There's no windows. And they're all like, swing open the door. They're all looking at me like, can we help you? And I'm all, hey guys, I really like your product and your videos are really cool. My Kickstarter's about to fail. Do you guys have any words of wisdom? So they're like, hey, come here, yeah. So they pull it up on his phone, and it's connected to the surround sound speaker system. And they watch my video. We haven't even met. I haven't even given my name. We're watching my video with their whole team watching on his phone, and it's all booming, and I'm like kind of self-conscious at this point. I'm like, whatever. So he's like, sick video. I'm like, rad, the Peak Design guy said my video is sick. So at the end of the video, he kind of gave me some feedback, and he was like, look, we have Kickstarter dialed. Just go copy our page. Just go figure out what we did and do that. I was like, that's awesome. I'm going to do that. So these guys have raised $15 million in 6 campaigns over the past 6 years. So they launch a campaign a year, basically, and they're Dan Pink in the Puzzle of Motivation talks about autonomy is one of the biggest motivating factors for your workforce, right? And so they really embody that. They love being autonomous. They have very holistic lifestyles. They play, they take breaks, they work hard. They just have a cool thing. They've never taken any investment money. So they're not beholden to anybody. They get to do whatever they want. And they go back to their Kickstarter community and just keep raising cash this way. And they've built a really sustainable, awesome system for themselves. Their last campaign that I think it just ended a couple days ago, they had 26,000 backers. 26,000 people gave them money, for a product that they're gonna ship them, and they raised $6 million. And their last campaign was $5 million. So these guys, and we're going to talk about it, they started small, they built a community, and they have no intention of stopping what they're doing. They've done a rad thing. But again, this is an extreme outlier. Pebble smartwatch is another example. Pebble smartwatch was one of the first smartwatches to come out. They did, I think their first one was like 10 million, and their total is 43 million. So it was like 20 million and 20 million or something. I think they did 2 campaigns. But again, those are outliers. So what one of the strategies that as I was praying about my campaign, as I was, asking God to show me, what's the code, how do I wrap my mind around all these moving pieces? How do I get the message out there? And I was thinking about how Jesus got his message out there. And Jesus had the 3, the 12, the 70, the multitude, and then the world, right? So I'm thinking big picture. I want to have this product everywhere. I want to reach everybody. So I'm jumping straight to the world. I need to get it to the world. I need to go to the press and all this stuff. And that flies in the face of everything that everybody will tell you in modern times. But also as our foundation here in the scriptures, Jesus, it says here, Jesus never wrote anything down. He's never recorded other than that, time he wrote in the sand. He never traveled further than 200 miles from his house. He's not recorded to carry any money, right? Think about that. Yet today, 2,000 years later, it's estimated that 4.5 billion people know who Jesus is, and the Bible still holds the Guinness Book of World Records at selling 5 billion copies. So obviously, I think most of us in this room believe that there's supernatural engagements, right? We can all agree on that. But to not also recognize the normal forces, I don't believe that there is separation of natural and supernatural. It's all God's design and beauty, right? We can learn about the dissemination of the message. So Jesus had Peter and John as his 2 closest homies that they did everything together, and Jesus shared everything with these guys. And then he had the 12 guys that he cruised around with and lived and ate and did everything with. And then he had the 70 that he sent out, right? Those are the extra disciples that didn't make the final cut. And then he had the multitudes who would show up. When every time Jesus would cruise around, the multitudes would show up, right? So the message was consistently getting, these guys would show up and they weren't really believers, but they were just interested in what Jesus was doing. And then finally, here we are, 2016 years later, and we're all following him because of how that happened. So I identified my 3, my 12, my 70, my crowd, and then the world. And I broke my strategy down into these parts. I had my 2 closest friends and my wife on my team that knew me very well, that would work for this vision without getting paid, that would just help me with the projects. I had about 12 to 20 people who would buy the product on the very first day, because it's critical, it's mission critical to get as much traction within the first 48 hours. So I'm like, I gotta get at least 20 people. I'm looking down my list of Facebook friends and contacts, get at least 20 people that'll just do anything I ask them to do. Buy the product, share the product, ask their parents to share, all this stuff, right? And then I had 70 to 100 people that I knew would eventually buy, right? If you nagged them enough, they'd be like, oh man, it's like, 3 weeks into it, I guess I should probably buy it. And then I had my crowd. So that's the other thing, like, for me, I had to be all into this thing. I exported my LinkedIn contacts list, into a CSV. I had how many hundreds of people on there. I exported my CSV list from my email. Anybody I've ever emailed was in there. So I've got a list of like thousands of people. It's not spam, they all know me, right? We're all connected. So that was my crowd, right? And so I rolled these out one by one. I'm like, okay, I got my closest people. They're gonna be with me in the war room when we go and launch this thing. And they're gonna be the ones actually helping me execute. Then I got, my 15 to 20 people on standby. As soon as I go live, boom. And then I got these other, stragglers, and then I got these, this 3,000 whatever contacts list that I'm just gonna keep, I'm gonna blast once at the beginning of the campaign, and then I'm gonna blast at the very end of the campaign. And then after I do all that, after I have this like path, that I'm building on, then I'll reach out to the blogs, to the media, to the press, because you have to show a little bit of traction before any of these guys can even care. Nobody wants to write about a losing story unless it's like Elon Musk getting to Mars, Like even if it doesn't win, people want to write about that story, right? But like some gadget, everybody's got a gadget these days, so it's like we only want to cover the story if cool things are happening. So I had to build up enough momentum through the tribe, through the people, in order to get coverage. And these are the statistics from our campaign, and you can see that the three top streams of energy going to the campaign was number one, email, the second, Facebook, and the third, Kickstarter. So you see the lion's share. We raised 13 grand, which is double the average, right? I will say that it's not a ton of money, but when you look at the average of $7,500, I'm pretty happy how it turned out. The lion's share here came from those tribal efforts, if you will. The people, our friends and family that we reached out to, and their friends, right? The email blast that we were doing, and the Facebook sharing that we were doing, and then the organic traffic from Kickstarter, people just cruising and looking at cool projects on Kickstarter. That was only about, this much. What was that, 25%? Yeah. That's important and really helpful. But again, the 80-20 principle is your tribe, your close friends, your people who you're reaching out to. And this is our trajectory. We did like a 30-day campaign, which is pretty common. So again, like I said, that first 2 days is super critical. If you hit 20% of your goal within the first 48 hours, you're 80% likely to hit your goal, which is kind of weird to think about, but it makes sense, right? You got to get enough momentum for other people to then come to your thing and say, oh, it's probably going to win, I guess I'll buy one. So you see this real steep. We pushed super hard in the beginning, and then after that, you see little ticks here and there, but it wasn't like I wanted it to do this. Everybody wants that, right? But that didn't quite happen. But it was just kind of the steady grow after that point. So just kind of recap everything we talked about. Start small, even if you have large ambitions. I see this product, there's more, I think there's more cell phones than there are people. And so I see this product as being a global product. I see it having that kind of potential. One of the things I didn't mention, but back in the day, people had camcorders, right? And everybody was like in this position. And now nobody has camcorders because we all have a camera in our pocket. But this position is still viable. You don't drop your phone. You don't have to hold it. You can just film forever. So I see it as a very viable product, and I want to have a huge global impact. But I had to start super small with friends and family and asking people that trust me and believe in the vision to support my product. Iterate until it's good enough. Like I said, we did 15 or 16 iterations. It's not. I don't look at this thing like the Mona Lisa, which is actually. It's actually probably kind of like the Mona Lisa, because the Mona Lisa, let's be honest, is a little funky. Let's say the David of Michelangelo, right? This isn't necessarily a work of art, but it's good enough to get to to get to people. We're still iterating on it, but at some point you have to shoot the engineer and ship the product, right? So iterate until it's good enough, and then put it out there. But make sure it's good enough. And despite technological advancements, word of mouth is still king. Word of mouth is crucial. Building trust is crucial. And realistically, whatever you're doing, people are like, hey, do you know anybody first before they're just like look and hire some random person, right? Building that trust is super important. It's like I was thinking about it like a club, the early adopters show up first and they're like, oh, this place is safe, this place is cool, and then the rest of the crowd shows up, right? After the first people have properly vetted it and make sure it's not dangerous or weird or play terrible music. So build trust, word of mouth, have a good product, professional looking assets. Those are all ways you can build trust. And then launch and listen. Launch the product and then listen to what feedback you have. That's another part of an iteration process. So you hear what people say, you don't take it personally because it's your baby and you're trying, you love it so much. You're like, okay, I'm gonna be objective about it. You said it was ugly, I'm gonna fix it. And then as we learned from Cool is Cooler, make sure you can deliver. right? So have some kind of, you're doing a small scale thing and you don't think you can scale like crazy, you can put caps on it. So you're like, well, there's only 100 available, you know, and if there's crazy demand, it caps at 100 and you're like, that's all we're selling. So make sure you can deliver. And I found this scripture when I was in the parking lot, which is perfect. It says, which of you desiring to build a tower does not sit down and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, ... all who see it begin to mock him. So Jesus was talking about people making fun of Cool is Cooler a long time ago. Because that's what happens when you promise something and don't deliver. So thank you for listening tonight, and I'd love to field any questions if you have them. Yeah.
What happens if you like your goal is like 10 grand and then you got $1 million? What happens?
You get to keep anything you make.
Celebrate.
You said the first 2 days are crucial.
Yeah.
Is there a way you can accelerate, like pay ads to exposure?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All that stuff goes into it. Ads is super important. You know, the pre-game before the crowdfunding launch is really important. So having your email list ready to go, having your ads already built, you know, and then being able to just say start ads as soon as it's your crowdfunding starts. Having press is sometimes tricky to work with. You know, they don't always want to cover your story, so you got to find people that do. And then the ones that do, you got to try and line up when they share the story. Sometimes it's late, you know. So that's kind of hit and miss, but generally you want to line up your email list, your ads, and your press coverage before you're even going to go live, so that by the time you're live, you know, it's all pumping. Yeah.
So you're saying that you're going through a bunch of iterations. Are you doing 3D printing at home?
So yes, we found a really good source. This company called Sculptio.
Okay.
They have an office in San Francisco and an office in France. And we kept getting packages from France. We're like, you don't have the machine in San Francisco? Like, I'd be happy to go drive up there. But they're super fast and affordable. We ordered a bunch from different ones online.
Yeah.
They proved to be the best. We borrowed a 3D printer from a friend. It was a Kickstarter campaign. It was kind of this circular thing. He spent $300 on it, and it worked for maybe 10 or 15 prints, which saved us a ton of money, and then we broke it and gave it back to him.
The reason I'm asking, so I mean, you have everything in CAD now. Are you going through this process of, you know, you want to keep evolving the product?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going through like ideation sessions where you basically think about, oh, how can we connect this, you know, beyond the hand, so that you've already built this system, this modular system, right? So that you can actually have you know, your camera set up on your backpack, so as you're, you know, tooling around a concert, it's just running 24/7. And you've got this Bluetooth thing. And I'm just like wondering if you've gone through that session where you kind of take a step back and just spend, you know, a week just sketching, iterating, and everything's in CAD, so you basically try to build a system that's modular enough so you can think about it in the connection with apparel and athletics.
Yeah, totally.
Things like that.
Yeah, and that's the tricky thing too, is you wanna maintain that, you know, iterative process, but at the same time still be you know, generating traction with the stuff that's already out there.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a fine line between, like, you know.
I'm just saying that you need, at some point you're going to need to do that so you can figure out what your scale is and what kind of multiple directions you can kind of go.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, and that's why, you know, when I was starting out with the lookbook, we came up with 7 other SKUs.
Yeah.
You know, we have a bunch of different products that we can take to market now, and then continue refining each one of those to make those the best version that they can be. But yeah, it's a balance.
Got a question over here?
2 questions, one at a time though. The first one, with crowdfunding, as the people donate or subscribe to some amount of money, are they usually expecting something back more in return based on what they, you know, if they throw in $300, are they wanting something of higher value back, even though it may cost you less, like retail against wholesale? But what are they expecting back?
So
nowadays,
you set rewards. So like, for instance, this was $25. So you go on there and you buy this for $25. There's the option for generous people, and it happened. There was plenty of generous people that were like, I'll put up $50 and just to buy one of these, and we keep the change, so to speak. But you generally set up your reward tiers as hard line items, and then people buy those at those dollar amounts. But there's the option to put in money and not want just like donate. You just give money.
So do you think most people in their heart really just want to help that company?
Not most people. No.
It's kind of like a charity when they do the silent auction.
Right.
People still want
Right.
a deal.
And that's the thing. It's like I'm building a product. Like I have Kingdom vision in mind, but they don't know that. They don't care for the most part. It's not a charity, right? So it's a physical transaction. They want something back. There's people going to believe in your campaign. They're like, oh, I'm rooting for this guy for whatever reason. But I don't remember what the numbers were. I think we got maybe $300 in just donations, which is cool. I'm not going to turn it down, but that's not what was funding our campaign.
So the other question, in watching your video, as you're bike riding or doing whatever you're doing with the camera on your phone, what is the result, and why are most people interested in having this? It seems like it might be hard to aim or focus or that type of thing. So
right.
What is the end result? Something that they want to edit or just...
Yeah, so that's kind of what we're also figuring it out. It's like, who is going to gravitate most to this product? Realistically, every hour or minute or something, there's more content uploaded to YouTube than anyone could watch in their entire life. So people are taking horrible video right now and putting it all over the place, right? So we're making a simple piece of infrastructure that helps eliminate that. So I don't, to tell you, this is for an active lifestyle, for runners, for outdoors, people who are hiking or whatever, make sure they don't drop their phone down a cliff. But that was part of the campaign, is to understand who's gravitating towards this, right? Product market fit is super important. It's like, who are we marketing to? Who are our images going to target? And we broke that down into segments from what we learned on the campaign.
Then lastly, just this week, I was reading.
Questions?
Yeah, this is the third one.
We're in a church, let's be honest.
This is bonus time. So just this
Bonus
week,
round.
I was reading about another camera shop that's closing, and they said, we tried so hard, some of you probably saw that article too, we tried so hard, we were always willing to help people when they came in with questions, but they'd always go and buy their camera online, so we as a store can't
Right.
do that. But
Sure.
also they found that as more and more people are just using their phone,
Exactly.
they aren't selling cameras,
Exactly.
film's out of business, of course.
Right.
So how will this compare? I know you had GoPro up there, some ideas there, but with them being so popular and big, can this start taking the place of that, pulling business away from that kind of marketplace?
Absolutely, without question. So GoPro lost 60% of their valuation last year. Their stocks dove 60%
Because
in 1 year. Market, they're saturated. Everybody who's going to buy a GoPro has already bought one. The iPhone 6 shoots in 4K now. Like, I'm a pretty active guy. I've never bought a GoPro. I don't plan on buying a GoPro because I have a camera, right, that does decent enough quality. So I think GoPro's in a very hard place right now. Another argument is that at any given time, there's hundreds, probably thousands of developers making new and cool products and apps to use your camera and all your phone and everything, whereas GoPro's limited to their innovation in their hub. So Forbes predicts, that cameras are going to overtake, phones are going to overtake GoPro. It's just a matter of time.
thank you.
So when did you start actually, when was the tipping point for getting media coverage?
There wasn't really a tipping point. There was one, we landed, if you guys are familiar with digital trends, we landed a story with digital trends that got us, that Yahoo took digital trends story and then republished it on all their Yahoo channels. So if that was kind of a tipping point, but it was kind of random. And honestly, there was a handful of stories that we found after the fact that we didn't even approach them and they didn't approach us. They just covered the story because they saw it somewhere or they were looking for a story or something.
But you think those were a result of the Kickstarter campaign specifically?
It's hard to tell. I couldn't really track it down. Again, the digital trends article really helped because they're pretty well known, trusted source, and then Yahoo sharing the story. You know, it's hard to tell. You know, you're doing Google searches to find like what's out there, and you're like, oh, this is weird and cool.
You have one more?
So, can we see your 15-second OtterBox pitch video? And if not, also, how long did it take to fulfill all your pledges?
So I can show you the pitch video. This isn't connected to the Wi-Fi right now. I'll show you the pitch video. I mean, I just did it. It's really not that exciting. Honestly, like I filmed it with a phone in my backyard, and I'm all, hey, this is the coolest next thing, and I like did the demo. You know? I was like, oh, it doesn't take much to impress these guys. They had Peyton Manning on a recent ad. You know, and he's really boring, so I'm like, oh, we knew better than that. Sorry, what was the second question? Oh, how unfulfilled. So we were only like 2 weeks late from our projection because we'd already raised capital, so we were already going to production and getting things warmed up in the process, which is highly recommended because most people are late in fulfilling. So I think it was maybe 6 weeks after the campaign or something, not too far after. I think the typical promise is 3 months, and then the typical delivering is, you know, at least a month late or something. So we ended up doing pretty good. Me and my wife did all the shipping, and we shipped to like 12 different countries. And that was definitely the worst part of any of it. And I'm like, at that point, I'm like, freaking cool is cooler, dude. I'm glad I'm not you. This is terrible. This is terrible.
Well, Justis, thank you so much. Everybody